Shalom, my friends. Look at me. I am spellbound. Do you know why? Because my guest in the neighborhood on this episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the Stream, I am talking to a musical legend, literally, in the folk world, in the pop world. Of course you know the face that we're looking at. It is literally Judy Blue Eyes with us here in the studio. She has a new album out called Spellbound. It is the first record she has ever done that is all completely her own song, so we're going to talk about that. But oh my gosh, it's Judy Collins. There's nothing else to say. Although if you happen to be in New Jersey on March 18th, you can go see her at the Scottish Rite Auditorium, but that's a month from now. Let us talk to and delight with Judy Collins. Shalom, Judy. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm wonderful and glad to be with you.
Glad to be with you too. Glad you look wonderful. I'm glad you are wonderful. How's COVID been for you?
Well, it's been a lot of things. I think it's a lot of things to different people. First of all, the planet got a rest, which it needed desperately. And I got a rest, which I needed desperately, in spite of the losses, and we have had many. And there's nothing amusing about that, although I think it's always time to assess what's going on and wonder why and how it's happening. I guess we know how and why it's happening, but a lot of people were reasonably upset for the lack of activity during that time. I was, on the other hand, fairly comfortable with that because, after all, I have been doing about 120 shows a year for a long time, and I really could not get off the racetrack to get a rest. And so I got arrested. I don't mean I was in jail, but I was not able to tour in the way that I had. In fact, in those 14 months, I did 2 viral shows, virtual concerts.
Viral's probably not the word you want to use.
Viral's just kind of, you want to. And, by the way, there are so many viruses in the world, and they have a job on the planet. They have many jobs, and they're actually carefully designed to do what they do. Some are very good, some are very bad. We just ran into a bad one.
I mean, for all we know, and this is not, I'm not making, well, I am making a joke, but for all we know, the Chinese were trying to cure cancer, and somehow this got out of that. So
yeah,
we really don't know. Yeah,
very possible. You never know. But viruses have been around always on the planet, apparently. And so here we are, and there I was, not able to travel and not able to go out of the house. And although I walked a lot. I walked in the park a lot.
And you've been fine. You didn't get COVID. Your husband has been fine. Neither of you got it?
We're so lucky. We got vaccinated right away. I believe in the science. I mean, I'm a girl that one of the first things that my father took me to, which was a public fundraiser, was a fundraiser in 1947 for the Salk vaccine. I was the people who ran that. My father was entertaining, and I think my mother was not around for some reason, and he brought me with him, and they thought it was very cute to put me in the iron lung to demonstrate how it worked. It was really horrifying to my mother when I got home, and she said, "What?" But then when I got polio 2 years later, she always blamed the trip to the fundraiser and the trip into the iron lung. But I was lucky. I spent 2 months in the hospital only. But I'm a girl who was raised on, you take the shots. You take the shot for shingles. You take the shot for your flu shot every year. You take the thing that keeps you from getting pneumonia. Why wouldn't I? So of course I took the shots.
I mean, I take a syphilis shot weekly, and I don't even have syphilis.
Why not?
Keeps me from getting it, I hope, I think. I'm just hoping. But since we're talking about the COVID thing and vaccinations and stuff, it is, of course, in the news that your colleague and an old friend, Joni Mitchell, has joined with Neil Young and some other artists pulling their music off Spotify. I have a problem with this. where do you stand? Obviously, you're pro-vax, but where do you stand on the Joe Rogan thing of somebody saying something that's kind of stupid, but should he be allowed to say it on that
Oh,
platform?
of course, he should be gone from Spotify.
Oh,
And all of us who feel that way feel that we should get out too. I joined my buddies. I called Stephen the other day and said, I'm on board with you. We do have some complications. First of all, this deal is not made with the artist. The artist is not the one who's paid. The record label makes the arrangement with Spotify. And so it therefore creates a conundrum, which we're just going through. We will announce and have announced that I'm part of the gang, of course, but that the wording is that we have a responsibility to the people who distribute our records to make sure they're on board with this.
but then the question becomes, I mean, as a person,
Because otherwise there's a controversy that has to do with the business and what they've said, what their arrangement is with Spotify, how it would be breaking into a precedent that's already set. So it's not an easy just do it. And everybody knows that. And the wording on CSNN makes that clear.
well, I'm even going beyond that to say, let's make believe that you had your own deal with Spotify. It had nothing to do with a record label, but you could decide whether or not. Is it unfair to ask this platform to delete a person who is giving an opinion, albeit a stupid, maybe dangerous opinion in terms of.
Absolutely, it's fine. I think this whole business about freedom of action, all these people who are running around destroying the health machine in the United States. They don't get vaxxed, then they get sick, then they go to the hospital, then they break it apart, then they say there's the power to resist. Bullshit, frankly. We know that there are things to do that are healthy and there are things to do that are not. He has been paid millions of dollars by Spotify, by the way. That contract was not with his record company. That was with Rogan. Maybe it was with his distribution company, but it was him that signed off on it. We personally and professionally are not getting paid directly by Spotify. I think it's very interesting that this happened at the same time that there is right now in this country a bill that's been put together by Congressman Cohen, which is dealing with an 82-year criminal tragedy that's happened to performers in the music business. I am a performer. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter, but the songs that I have sung on the radio, on terrestrial radio, quotes unquote, for nearly now going on 65 years, I don't get paid for them. Nobody does. Nobody who was a performer, including Frank Sinatra, God bless him, none of us get paid a royalty. By the way, we're the only country in the world that doesn't have a performer rights bill. So from 1939, when I was born, when that bill passed, I have never been paid a cent on terrestrial radio. Now there's a different deal for internet radio, which they try to cheat us too. Sirius XM tried to get away with murder with us, and they said, okay, we're not going to pay you for songs recorded before 72. Well, a lot of my records were made that were big hits before 72. So right now that bill is in Congress of Congressman, I'll think of his name in a minute. I'll call you in the middle of the night and tell you. And so I think it's very interesting that these two things have come up, that we're not being paid. That's why I have to stay on the road my whole life, because I did not ever make royalties on all the songs that I sang. By the way, because we're the only country in the world that does not have a performer right bill, when we have hits, any of us, when we go to one of the other countries, we don't get paid there either, because we don't have reciprocal. So if let's say that Elton John sings not his own songs, but somebody, by the way, even if he sings his own songs, he doesn't get the performance royalty. He gets the writer's royalty through his publisher, but he does not get the performance royalty. Everywhere else in the world, they're making their percentage.
Well, is
they're,
that one of the reasons your new album is that, you know what? I'm going to write each and every one of them, and if it becomes a hit, it's all right. I get money. At least I'm the author.
well, I believe me, I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. That's right. And the songs that I have copyrights on, for instance, I copyrighted Amazing Grace when it was sung, when it was played many years ago, when I recorded it in 1969. I recorded that version, and actually I did make royalties when the Scots Pipers recorded it. They used my version. But I never was paid on the singing. How about that? That's what I make my living on, is the voice. And I've never been paid for the singing.
Pete Seeger used to have these terrible fights with God because they'd argue over turn, turn, turn. And then people said, I made it famous. I put it out there, and God, oh, I wrote it. You know, I got 70%. They fought.
That's right. That's right.
Let's talk about your new album. I'm sure you want to talk about your new album. It's called
I do.
Spellbound.
I do.
It's from Cleopatra. I was going to say Wildwood, but no, it's Cleopatra Records. Is this your label, or is it a new label? Where's I haven't heard of this.
It's me. It's my label, which is Wildflower Records, but it's distributed by Cleopatra Records. He's my banker. He's my distributor, and he's been very helpful all along.
Lullaby. So tell us about this. It's very personal. It's kind of nostalgic. You have a couple of songs about Colorado, of course. So the genesis of the album was being stuck in a pandemic and having time to write. But what about the themes and thoughts of the album?
I had been, as I've told you, as people know, I started writing songs in 67. My first song was Since You've Asked. And since then I've been writing songs. But I just became, in 2016, I had 4 or 5 records in a row that were very interesting, because one was a duets album with a lot of guys. I sang songs with Willie Nelson and with Jackson Brown, and a number of other singers, and also with Ari Hest, who I've become friendly with, and I tour with him sometimes. And then we wrote an album together called Silver Skies Blue. I did an album called Winter Stories, which was with a collaboration with the Chatham County Line. That gave me my first #1 Billboard slot, by the way, after all these years. Lots of other numbers, some of them very good, but that was my first #1 Billboard hit. So all through those years from 2016, because I had gotten used to writing with Ari and touring with him and singing sometimes with him, and he is singing on this album. A lot of these songs he's singing harmony on, and one of them he added a co-write to the song called Hell on Wheels. And so I started giving myself a discipline of writing every day, writing poetry every day. And I did that for a full year. So I had 365 poems, at the end of which, and a number of those would come out of that practice and become songs. At the end, on the day 365, I wrote a song called Dreamers, which I recorded a couple of years ago, which is about immigration. I didn't put it on this album because I felt that I wanted to focus not on something which was not about me. The song Dreamers is very much about the immigration community, and the voice of the singer is a young girl whose mother is worried that her daughter's going to have to leave the country because of the lack of a DACA protection of children who are the children of immigrants. So because I was writing all these poems and turning them into songs, I had really pretty much was able to start recording in 2019 before the pandemic hit. And I started recording, and I had 5 or 6 songs on that. So that gave me a leg up to do more and to finish the rest and get them done. I think we did 2 sessions, one session during the pandemic in the summer, and then we came back in 21. As soon as we opened up, we had 2 more sessions, and so we were able to finish. But the question about what was it that was on my mind in all of these songs, it was what was on my mind. I mean, poetry is a great vehicle to find your way to a song, although poetry and lyric are very different. They're two different things, and they should not be housed under the same heading. But we'll go into that rather esoteric discussion another time.
Hey, they gave Bob Dylan a Nobel, and people have been saying, well, you know,
They could have given him a special award. They needn't have interrupted and disavowed all the other poets who were up for that award. I think it was, frankly, it was a mistake, because I love Bob. I'm devoted to him. I've recorded many of his songs, but they are not poems. I'm sorry. So there you go. That's why I always get into trouble.
I see this. Boy, oh boy, so anti-Joe Rogan, issuing Bob Dylan, fighting with publishers about music. Well, this is going to be fun. I will say, if folks, if you're looking for even another reason to buy Spellbound, the new Judy Collins album, like her co-writer on some things and helper, Ari Hest, his mom is a cantor. So many good reasons to get this record also.
She's a cantor with a gorgeous, gorgeous voice. And he is one of the best singers. You know, I've never found anybody before, and I've been doing this for a long, long time, but I have never worked with someone. I met him in 2013. We traveled together, then we started singing together. And then I found, as we started to perform together, I realized that this is a voice that combines with me in a way that I've never had that happen before.
Wow.
Yeah.
You sang with Willie Nelson, you sang with all these other people.
They're wonderful. And that's fabulous. You know, I love singing with Michael McDonald. I love singing with the people that are on that album, but it's not something, in all cases, it was a wonderful experience, but there's something very different and unique and unusual about his voice and mine. And also that we could write songs together, and that he could put a harmony on songs that I'd written and make them feel as though there was some new element that made them go some other place.
By the way, speaking of going some other place, this is a completely random question that I would not have thought of until 30 seconds ago. And forgive me, but do you have a tattoo on your hand? I
do.
What, where, why, how? How did, when?
A couple of years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine who's a composer. And he said, do you know who Anthony Bourdain is? I said, of course. He said, well, you know that he killed himself a few weeks ago. I said, I understand that. I was blown away when I found out. He said his mother wants to make contact with you. She does not know anybody else who has lost a son to suicide. And so Gladys Bourdain, Anthony Bourdain's mother, and I became friends. I am very sad to say that she died. She died in 2019, just before the lockdown. But she and I would go out to lunch, we'd go and have caviar together, we'd talk on the phone, we'd, share, not always about our kids, but very much about life. She was an interesting woman. She was an editor at the New York Times for 25 years. And she was married to a guy who, I forget his first name, but he was an agent at Columbia, and he was an agent for all the big classical artists. So she spent time hanging out with Pavarotti and Horowitz and so forth. So she and I just had a fabulous time together, short but sweet. And one day she called me up and she said, do you want to go? She said, I'm going down to Tony's tattoo artist. His name is Chris Garver, and he's down on the street that the public theater's on. I forget the name of it. Lafayette. She said, I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to have a tattoo of Tony's name on my wrist. Would you like to come? And so we went down. Actually, she was late picking me up that day, so Chris didn't have time for both of us. But I said to Chris, I'll be back. And so I sat there with her while she got Tony's tattoo name on her wrist. And then I came back a few days later with my husband. And I said, do you think you could do my son's name? I'll have to take my watch off so I can show you that.
Because it looked like the design, rather, I couldn't really tell it was, a name on your.
And then, so on this side of my wrist is my son's name, Clark.
I didn't see that. Okay.
And then on this side, I said, could you do a bird on my wrist? Having no idea how much that would hurt.
Yeah.
Because there's a sign up there on the wall that says, no whining.
You're obviously not Jewish. Okay, fine. Yeah, wow.
Oh, yes, no kvelling, no kvetching.
No, kvetching. Kvelling you can do. Kvetching is, but
And
it's
so
a
that's
bird. I see now.
that's my bird. And he drew it freehand. And he put it on a little transferable piece of paper, and then he put it on, and then he did it.
Does that bird have meaning to you in relation to your son?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The swallows will return to Capistrano. My son was, and then of course I wrote a book about suicide after his death, because I really wanted to get down all the things that I know about suicide. I was an attempter at 14. I tried to kill myself at 14. Why? Why do people do that? So, the good news is, and I know this because he made a tape of his death while he was in the car dying of carbon monoxide. But everybody, even I, at 14, everybody changes their mind. They're not always, spiritually, that can give you a lift.
Yeah.
Because somehow, somewhere, something turns over in the mind and says, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't such a great idea.
Right. Well, yeah, if you can just get that across to people that today you feel this way, next week.
That's right. Yeah. That's why they say, please try to live past midnight. They call us attempters. They call us the children of Noah. Isn't that interesting? Because of course,
I don't remember from and I should know the Bible, but yeah.
Yeah, it's in the Bible, honey.
Yeah.
He was
been a while since I've read it.
Well, that can always change. Tomorrow is another day.
It is indeed. But
Noah was in the mouth of the whale.
I mean Jonah.
Jonah, I'm sorry. Children of Jonah. Also Noah.
Yeah. But here's
the ark. And Jonah was in the whale. So
right. And Job was the one who should have committed suicide because but too many names in the Bible. But let me ask you though, this is a happier question. So when you go and you write the album that you're having and write these songs and do them, a lot of them are nostalgic, a lot of them are like remembering an old boyfriend, an old guy who loved you or you loved him. How does your husband feel? You're writing all these you're writing these songs about him? You've been with him since 1978. Does he go like, you could, a ditty, a 46.
Oh, I've written about him. In fact, I wrote a wedding song that I sang at our wedding. What is it called? Well, it's wedding song for Lewis, but it's really, I recorded it on one of my albums. The night before our wedding, I dreamed of falling stars. That's how it starts. Anyway, I've written about almost everything I can think of. And that's how it went into this album, that a lot of the things that were on for instance, I've written a song about Thomas Merton, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I read Thomas Merton's book, The Seven-Story Mountain, in my 20s, and I was just hooked by it. It's a great biography. It's one, in my experience, as far as biographies go, I think two of the greatest stories about spiritual transformation are the autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda's story, which is absolutely fabulous, and Thomas Merton's story in 77-Story Mountain. He started writing when he got to Gethsemane, the monastery in which he spent most of his adult life after he had made his conversion and gone to school to be a priest or a monk and so on. So I read him and I liked him. And now today, and throughout the pandemic, I was reading a book of his meditations. And he was always very open about what he was doing, who came to see me. Yesterday, the Berrigan brothers came by to see me to talk about going to Washington and LBJ and the war and so forth. So he always interspersed his meditations and his chores around the monastery, chopping wood, carrying water. He always interspersed that with very personal things. And so during the pandemic, while I was reading him in the morning, I thought, I wonder what people are thinking about Thomas Merton right now. Does anybody read him? Then surely, believe me, they do. He was supposedly died in 1968. I knew that it was in Thailand, apparently, and that he was electrocuted when he stepped on a live wire after stepping out of a bath. That's what I was told. That's the old story.
All right.
And so he in his life, he wrote 70 books. The Seven-Story Mountain sold millions of copies. His monastery, Gethsemane, has all the royalties for those books. They went straight into his, to pay for his food and shelter and clothing. In 68, the Dalai Lama, he was very interested, Merton, he was very interested in the Eastern meditations. He was interested in Zen. He was interested in Yogananda. He was interested in all of the Eastern meditators. And so the Dalai Lama invited him in 1968 to come to Thailand and to be part of a conference, which was an religious conference. And he went. And when I went to Google, my friendly Google, and I found out what was going on with Thomas Merton, it turned out that there was a new book published in 2015 called The Martyrdom of Thomas Merton. I read a little farther. One of the things that I had known and didn't know I knew, don't you think there's a lot in our world that we didn't know we knew until we find it, and now we don't know it.
For me, it's arithmetic, but there you go. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. And what I didn't know was the church had said after Merton's death, they had said, well, he'll never be sainted because he opposed the war in Vietnam. Now that makes him my best buddy, next to you and all my other friends.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
And now when I read that there's this book called The Martyrdom of Thomas Merton, I immediately got it. And I found out that they had discovered, and I won't spoil the ending because I put this in the song, which is called Thomas Merton, that they discovered that the reason for his death had been hidden all these years. So there was no autopsy done.
Yeah.
The guy who discovered the body disappeared. Nobody ever found him again. And
because several people at Con Edison were fired, for leaving that wire out like that. No,
and the fact was that it was not that he was electrocuted. He was murdered. We discovered bullet holes in photographs of his skull. And nothing was done to report his death as a mysterious death. But remember that in Thailand in 1968, we were still bombing the hell out of, we were sending all of our planes to, we were using all of the runways in Thailand to go off and bomb Vietnam and Laos, Cambodia.
And that was all the monks and priests were burning, immolating themselves.
That's right. And Thailand was crawling with CIA. Crawling with CIA. Now, you have to understand that he really was a fighter for peace. As much as any of the other heroes that we celebrate, many of whom were killed in those years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been that. I was just thinking about that this week. It's so weird that when you get Martin Luther King and you get Gandhi and Sadat and Shamir and just all these really outspoken peace people are murdered.
That's
This is
right.
why I really don't talk about peace
And
too much.
and
I want to
he
live, you
he
know?
fit right. He fit right in.
Yeah, yeah. That's a
He
little.
was a danger
Yeah.
to the Christian community. He was. I mean, who was going off? Young Christian men, uh, and women, of course, eventually. But somebody wanted him stopped, and he got stopped.
Wow. Well, I hope nobody stops you ever. Speaking of my Judy Collins, I don't know how much time you have with it. We're hitting up on that half an hour, but if you have a minute
Oh
or two,
yeah, we are.
this is terrible. If I can ask one more
Ask
question.
ask me another question.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, just for a laugh, because we've been talking so much death and sorrow. Tell me, please, the line about smoking that you heard from a doctor.
oh
And
yes, a
the Rolling
doctor.
Stones.
Oh yes, okay. This is important because everybody had problems during the COVID. Of they ate too much, they drank too much, or they didn't, or they couldn't lose weight, so I had a friend who couldn't stop smoking. So I said, why don't you call my doctor, Dr. Brun, and he'll help you out. So he went over to see my doctor, and Brun said, well, do you know what happens when you take a cigarette into your body? And my friend said, no, I don't. I just do it. And he said, well, God takes an hour of your life and he gives it to Keith Richards.
I love that. I think it's just so wonderful and so great. Oh my goodness. And you are so wonderful and so great. We've been talking with Judy Collins, ladies and gentlemen. Please, everybody, get yourself a copy of Spellbound. It's out February 25th on Cleopatra Records. She wrote all the songs. Plus, she is touring. I don't know when you're coming back to the East Coast. I know you're in New Jersey, God help us, on March 18th. But mostly you're doing other places on the map. Estes Park in Colorado later in March, which is lovely. What are you working on? Anything else? A children's book? Anything new? And then
Well, I'm trying to write another book about me and my life, and that's coming along. So who knows when it'll come out?
Now wait. What didn't you write already? What's new to putting a book? Is it literally about the last 10, 15 years, or just again going backward?
I'm putting a combination of song lyrics, my song lyrics, and my poetry, which I've been writing for years, and memories. The memory starts, and let's say I take my experiences with Dick Farina, for instance, Dick and Mimi Baez Farina, and I write a couple, 3 pages about what happened when I met them, and when he was married to Carolyn Hester, and we met in the rain in someplace, and we went to Martha's Vineyard, and we had a wonderful time. We were in a boat. There was only one other person on the boat. We managed to run into the other boat, even though that was the only other boat in the lake. So I knew Richard and Mimi very well. I was staying at their wedding and so on. And then when I'm done, then I include a new song, a song of mine, and a new poem of mine. So that's what I'm working on.
That's huge. That sounds absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to see that. I'm already listening to the new album, of course, Spellbound.
Good.
Judy Collins, I wish I could keep you for so much longer. I know you have to go. I just want to thank you for bringing joy and delight once again to the neighborhood. Continued good health.
Thank
good
you,
things.
honey. Thank you.
Shalom.
Shalom. And Shlanta.
Oh, okay. Here we go. I'll snapple Shlanta to that.
That's right. I'm part of the lost tribes,
Huh? Oh, of Ireland.
Because I'm Irish, yes.
Well, bless you either way. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you, dear. Bye.
Shalom to you.
Shalom.